call the September 23rd, 2019 meeting of the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission to order. Mr. Ketty, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Here.
Mr. Scributinus?
Here.
Ms. Gold?
Present.
Mr. McPartland?
Here.
Mr. Darpino?
Here.
Mr. Oster?
Here.
Chairman Walsh?
Here. Okay, we have the approval of the minutes from the August 26, 2019 meeting. They were included in your packet. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Oster, and I believe seconded by Mr. McPartland. Do we have any corrections or changes? I have none. Anybody? No? Okay. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, the minutes from the August 26th meeting are unanimously approved. Okay, let's see. Next, public hearings. We have no public hearings tonight, so move right to privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters in the town of Niskayuna, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. And we'd love to hear what you have to say.
My name is Wendy Matern. My address is 2215 Knott Street, Post Mailbox 175. I am an employee and former resident of Schenectady County, and I am deeply concerned about this Knott Street improvement project. 6 proposals were proposed by the MJ engineering firm. All 6 of them really do not solve the problem and only make it worse. There are many things that have been suggested, other plans that have been submitted, and none of those plans were ever shown to the public once, nor were they addressed afterwards saying that there was anything wrong with them. Nothing. There's a number of reasons why this proposal will not work. It's going to cut down parking. It's going to make driving more difficult. Emergency vehicle traffic up and down that road will never be able to pass. I've seen it the past few weeks. It's never going to happen. By narrowing the road, you make the traffic slow down, sure, but you also narrow the road, making driving difficult. We have a wonderful elderly community that is very active, and they go to the co-op, they go to all of those businesses. They are never going to be able to play Frogger across the street to get back and forth. Other proposals either need to be seen or they just need to stop the proposal. It's not a workable proposal, regardless of how much money has been thrown at it, have been donated towards it, or could be there. If they cannot see other proposals from the community who have been very voicing it to everybody, to us, we've sent in tons of things. If they're not willing to work with the business owners and the neighborhood to make a workable solution, then they should not be allowed to put this project through. It's not workable. It's too city, it's too urban, it's not Niskayuna, it's not neighborhood, it's not friendly in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
No, thank you.
My name is Ann Leonelli Gallo. I reside at 2530 Angelina Drive, but I'm here about the Knott Street project. I own a business at 2211 Knott Street. A lot of the similar concerns that were just spoken before. A couple things, and I know that when we know the town board, this is not your plan, and that you don't have a whole lot of control over what goes on, but this plan does include Niskayuna streets, and it will affect the town streets if they move forward with what they're talking about. So it is important for the town of Niskayuna. A couple particular things to Niskayuna as a town. The plan they are proposing will create a greater bottleneck because they are taking a cookie cutter plan that's been used in much more urban areas like State Street. Okay. It will be shrunk down, so you will not be able to, in the parking area, you will not be able to get around cars. So imagine pulling into a parking lot by the co-op, and if you want to go down to the post office store, to my store, to the pharmacy, you now have to wait for anyone who's backing up from the co-op, from narrower parking spaces, because they're proposing the narrower version. We know how that'll go over with our town population. And then you have to wait for them to get down to the other end. And also nowhere else in Schenectady where they've used this cookie cutter plan have there been 20 parking spaces. This plan doesn't work for 20 parking spaces. And what you'll do is create a bottleneck on cars coming from Knott Street, from Schenectady, and right back onto Balltown Road. Now, we've got enough of a backup problem as it is. This is supposed to be about safety. The woman that was killed in the crosswalk was killed by a drunk driver. This is not going to stop a drunk driver from hitting someone. What this will do is create a lot of confusion, a lot of bottleneck, and it's going to drive cars onto residential streets, heavily residential streets with small children. Those are the town of Niskayuna streets. And once this is done, there's going to be nothing you can do about it, except for watch the complaints come in. And for anybody that was here, when Schenectady County did their very quick meeting, there wasn't a person in this room, and it was standing room only. There was not a person in this room that was for that plan. Okay, not a business owner, not a resident. So you have the town who is very concerned. You have a beautiful, iconic plaza that has been in Schenectady for, what, 80 years? And you are trying to, not you, excuse me, the Schenectady County is trying to turn it and use a plan that's more urban, that you all know that's not what that plaza is. And if you do that, it's very likely that many of those businesses, if not all, will go out of business. And I don't think the town of Niskayuna can afford to lose the best plaza in the area. All the employees will be lost. I'll just go somewhere else for a store. I don't think Niskayuna can afford that kind of loss. It's the best part of the community right there by Old Niskayuna. So they have not done any statistical studies, or at least they haven't showed us anything. They have not showed us any studies. No one's come into one of our stores asking about customer flow, anything. So they're shooting from the hip, taking 1.3 million. Schenectady County really doesn't seem to care if a Niskayuna plaza goes out of business. They don't have any skin in the game for that plaza. But it's going to affect our town. And I find it very disturbing and interesting that for 9 months, they met with the business owners and told us estimated 5 to 6 months, which we know is probably not going to happen. And last week, I met with our Schenectady County legislators, and the engineer in the town told them now it's 3 months. How does a proposal, and there's PowerPoints, where they were suggesting 5 to 6 months as their best estimate, and now they're telling our county legislature 3 months. Why? Because they want the legislatures to say yes to the plan. That disturbs me a lot. And I hope it will disturb you, and I hope that whatever you can do with the county legislatures and the Schenectady County, that you'll do it, because I think it'll be real damage to the town of Niskayuna.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Greg Solomon. I own Knott Street Office. We're a printing and shipping company down on in the plaza. I'm going to give you just a pinch, if you bear with me, of history on this. Way back when that woman was killed in the plaza, we kind of sat around, thought the town might take some action, maybe even I used a couple of times a month, see a cop car parked at the end of Lang's. Once that woman was killed, I have never seen even a cop car again. It was like almost like the town said, oh my God, if we put cops there, we're taking some responsibility now for speeding or reckless driving. So we approached the county, Metroplex, and all was going really well. We were basically asking for traffic calming measures and pedestrian amenities. Now this started good 5-6 years ago. So, all the things that were kind of wanted are this, and one of the people who was on the co-op board at the time said, well, then just move Knott Street. And of course, they all laughed. All of a sudden, the project kind of started to come to life in that way. And that's still good 4 or 5 years ago, this has been going on. All the merchants turned against the project. So they have known the opposition to this plan 5+ years. I can almost guarantee you that's the reason there is a new owner of Niskayuna Wine and Liquors. Because Peter Scanlon and the Scanlon family was not going to sit around. They knew what was on the wall. My other concern is for the co-op itself. Anyone here who is a member of the co-op has the right to look at the financial statement of the co-op. So your $5, you are an owner of that shopping center. When Dave and I were on that board, we had $1 million in reserves. The reserves are under $200,000 now. ShopRite, maybe a couple of mismanagement decisions. 6 months of protracted construction. I can almost guarantee you that co-op will not be here. Now, we have to decide if we really value these independent businesses. There are so many more. We have smart people. We have clever people. We can figure out ways to meet all the needs of the community. And last thing, the most disappointing again, is that same cookie cutter approach with the concrete barrier. You gotta realize, I figured minimum, you're talking about 1,500 unique customers in that plaza where people are back, coming and going. This is not the case in other areas. You know, people park in front of Proctor's, or else they have the J Street lots or whatever other options. We're also not walking in with computers to be fixed, boxes to be shipped, 3 or 4 boxes of printing to be left out, carts of groceries. This is a high volume, high traffic shopping district. And as Ann said, nobody took any of that into consideration. Customer counts, car counts, parking. And lastly, we do believe one single entrance, which would be the longest concrete barrier project in the history of this county probably, with everyone entering at the co-op, would further create a backup on Knott Street, which just increases, maybe not as much the little fender benders, but the most serious accidents that have happened on there have been rear ends, including myself. I used to park behind my own store, signal on, 8:30 in the morning, commuter looking at the light, bam, back in the Subaru. I now own a Jeep instead of my Subaru, unfortunately, and I park across the street. But I'm young and fast enough, and I don't know how much longer I'll be that young, to run across that street. And frankly, with the speed of that traffic, it is scary. So we really want you to see if you could communicate with the county, reopen the discussions to something that would meet the needs of the greater community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can't see you when I put these on. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start with, don't let the county of Schenectady destroy downtown Niskayuna. And it's been downtown Niskayuna for a long time. Please speak up and help us preserve our legacy of service to our town of Niskayuna. Stop the Knott Street, $1,500,000 boondogling project. Our town, our county, our state need to figure out how to develop roads that safely satisfy the 4 needs of the area of downtown Niskayuna. This area has been continually small business since 1930. Today contains almost 130 jobs with 10 small businesses. Please help the businesses, employees, residents, recreation, bikes, and walkers. Do we need a fast road east to stop to the ShopRite or west to the casino? Our town and county planners, MJ Engineering, are squeezing all of these needs together in 500 by 85 feet. Now think about that, 500 by 85 feet for $1,500,000. What are they going to put there? At the demise of the businesses and customers, our neighbors. A stoplight in the left-hand turn, improvements that they were selling for a long time, many, many years, have been canceled. There will be 25 plus fewer parking spaces. And that includes Greg's parking place. Will be gone for a road. One way in from Balltown and out at Clifton Park Road. Cement sidewalks up the hill over our fragile sewer, water, and gas lines. Heavy construction digging within a foot of our front doors and basements. And that's what it is, 1 foot. They did that in 1930. County admits to 6 months delay. Of course, that will be 12 months. Businesses will be shut down and gone by then. Is this the ultimate plan? Empty buildings? People do not want this. You do not want this. Call, speak up to our county and our town and our state legislators. Write letters, go to town and county meetings. How about a rally? I'm really thinking about this. Question those running for office. Do we need this expense and craziness? Now, they're telling us it has to be built as a 40-mile-per-hour road. And then they tell us, okay, now we've got a 40-mile-per-hour road, so we're going to put traffic calming barriers in. Does this make sense? For $1,500,000. This area was planned as and can still be town center. Driving somewhere else to grocery shop, mail a package, get a haircut, permanent hair removal, pick up a prescription or a bottle of wine does not make sense. In the 1930s, in the remote area of Niskayuna, it was very remote at that time, a co-op grocery and gas tank filling station business started on the northwest corner of Knott Street and Clifton Park Road. You'll notice how wide the road is there. The wide streets part of Knott Street was designed for more businesses on both sides. It was going to be a regular downtown area. Knott Street East was a farm. Please explain the mindset of our local dignitaries who are punishing hometown small businesses. They are putting obstacles in the way instead of helping. Reducing parking by 20+ spaces that are needed to meet town code. Oh yeah, they tell us, well, you just overlook that. But I'm sure if we tried to get new businesses, that it would come right up. And it has, I've been there. Oh yes, of course, businesses need safe and enough parking for clients and employees. We have town planners who say people will walk. Maybe a few in our 4 months of spring and summer, but not enough to keep the shops in business. Where are the sidewalks for the rest of Niskayuna? Our school children who walk have mud and dirt or the middle of the road to walk to school on. The $1,500,000 being allocated for 500 by 85 feet of blacktop cement and barriers could build sidewalks for most of Old Niskayuna. Why not tax breaks for staying in business? ShopRite got tax breaks to compete with the small businesses. ShopRite will be gone when the tax breaks run out. Why do our planners solicit out of town or out of our country and give them tax rebates? Small locals get squeezed out of business and fast roads to the casino. Yep, you knew I was going to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. Privilege of the floor is still open. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Sure. Okay, seeing no one else for privilege of the floor, we'll close privilege of the floor. We have no unfinished business tonight, so we'll move right to new business. For new business, we have we have one resolution and a ZBA referral. The resolution first is Resolution 2019-27, a resolution for site plan approval of a Mathnasium Learning Center at 2321 Knott Street East, Suite Number 3. Mr. Keddy, would you please read the resolution?
One of the purposes of the meeting was to take action on the application for site plan review. The following was offered, whereas Jeremy Morrison has made an application to the planning board for a new tenant site plan review for the property located at 2321 Knott Street East, Suite 3, as shown on the site plan entitled Mathnasium Learning Center, 2321 Knott Street East, Niskuna, New York, 12309, dated September 6, 2019. And whereas the zoning classification of the property is CN Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District within the Town Center Overlay District, and whereas the applicant is proposing a service store and learning center, and whereas the planning board referred the application to the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering and fire district chief and the chief of police, and there was no objections to the proposal, and whereas the board has carefully reviewed the proposal, and by this resolution does set forth its decision hereon. Now, therefore, be it further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission find the Mathnasium site plan meets the requirements of the zoning code, previous site plan approvals, and therefore hereby approves this site plan and tenant change.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion on the resolution?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Resolution is moved for adoption by Mr. Scributinus. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Ms. Gold. And I know we have the applicant, Mr. Morrison, here, so ask Mr. Morrison at the discussion portion to kind of tell us about Mathnasium.
Hi, thank you very much. Mathnasium is a math-focused learning center. Mathnasium is a national chain. There's about 1,000 locations all across the country. I live in Clifton Park, and I opened my first location in Clifton Park just last year, October 1st. We've been in business, now have about 100 students that are coming to the center, on a regular basis. Students come in 2 to 3 times per week. About 20 of the students that we currently have in Clifton Park are actually from Niskayuna and do the commute and come out to Clifton Park and have kind of been banging on my door to open up a location over here. So planning on doing that. The center's open about 24 hours a week. So we're open from 3 to 8, Monday through Thursday, and 4 hours on Saturday. We don't have set appointments, so kids come in at any time that they want during the hours that we're open and stay for about an hour. Any questions I can answer? I'd be happy to.
I just wanted to point out that obviously Friday and Sunday, currently the proposal is to be closed on Fridays and Sundays, correct?
That's currently we're closed on Fridays and Sundays in
All right.
Clifton Park. Correct.
All right. And one of the comments I heard was, there's shows quite a few seats, but any given time, it's how many people you would expect, including the staff, to be there?
Sure. So currently in Clifton Park, we max out at about 20 students with about 5 staff. We've only been open for a year. Hopefully we'll grow, get up to about 30, 40 students with about 7, 8 staff that support them. Again, as I mentioned, there's not appointments, so it's not, right at 3 o'clock, everybody walks in and then walks out at 4. It's more a rolling schedule. People walk in, stay for an hour. Parents sometimes come and sit. Very often they just drop off their kids and go shopping, or they highly recommend. Most of our parents today go to the Starbucks next door, which is where we are in Clifton Park. Hopefully here they'll come and go grocery shopping and visit all the other restaurants in the area.
Just open the board for any questions or comments.
I was just trying to remember, are there any crosswalks that kind of right by there? Is there?
Well, the crosswalk crosses at basically Uncle Rico's.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So because that's the only, it's not that there would be any barrier to it. The only thing I'd see is by its very nature, you're going to have, kids there and it's a very, somewhat of a busy area, and just kind of the confluence of, I'm sure
Absolutely.
you know that, and, going there that.
Yeah. So, we have parents walk kids into the center, other than high school kids are not allowed to walk out of the center without a parent coming and walking them across. So, that's basically the way that we operate. We have somebody who sits at a front desk kind of watching the door and not allowing kids to leave unless they're supervised.
Dave, you might have a question about next door is the restaurant, right?
Karma Bistro. Yeah.
Is that going to be, is that noisy? Is it going to be okay to be able to, to teach and everything? Have you evaluated?
They've assured me that it's soundproof enough. I haven't, and they've assured me that they'll help me if it's not, but they don't expect it to be an issue.
I was thinking of you, David, from the other visits
Oh, from,
spectrum. So it kind of tripped me to this also, if you're trying to be quiet or discuss things, So, but anyway, that's something you might want to,
Yeah, no, I
Sure.
have brought it up with them. I was concerned, but they've assured me it won't be an issue.
What's the typical age range that you market to?
Second grade up through 12th grade.
any other questions, comments for the applicant?
Yeah, we don't have to approve the signage for it.
No, he didn't submit a sign package. So if he wants a waiver, or he would have to come back to us for a waiver, or he has to stay within the regulations of the district.
Yeah, I'm finalizing that with corporate, assuming that we get permission. They're very strict as to their requirements, as are you. So I'm trying to figure out something in between, but noticing where we are and the size of Karma Bistro and some of the others there, probably will come back and request a variance just so that we match other signage in the park. But I understand that's a process and we'll go through it.
And when do you expect, if we get your approvals, to be operational?
I have a contractor lined up for October 1st, and our hope is to do a soft launch by December 1st and kind of really start in business on January 1st.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Anything else? Anybody? No? Okay, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme?
Aye.
Mr. Scrubby Tennis?
Aye.
Ms. Gold?
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin?
Aye.
Mr. Darpino?
Aye.
Mr. Oster?
Aye.
And Chairman Walsh.
Aye, the resolution is approved, and it's a great use of a vacant spot, so hopefully you're successful and look forward to having you in the community. Okay. All right, I guess next action is a building permit, right, Laura? So, okay. All right, thank you. All right. Next, we have the ZBA referral for 416 Balltown Road. This is the application for site plan approval for the Chase Bank and Mohawk Commons. And we have representative of the applicant here, Ms. Porter, right? I don't know if you want to come up and, we all got a packet that included the denial letter and, the drawings, of course. And, we're going to be acting first on waivers. And any waivers that do not get our approval, then you'll have the opportunity, if you want to send it on to the ZBA, then we would make a recommendation to the ZBA. So we've got all that. I don't know if you want to say anything specifically, or maybe we'll take each one. How's that sound? And then if you want to.
Sure, and then to the extent you have any questions, or if you want additional rationale or reasoning behind why we're seeking the relief, myself and our site engineer are more than happy to address your questions.
Great.
Or to give you more specific. We have boards, so whatever information you need in order to make a referral.
Okay, let me see if I can get organized here. All right, so what we're going to do is we'll start with waivers, and we'll take them one at a time based on the denial letter, okay? And under section 220-48.21, the zoning ordinance, planning board may waive the requirements for the sections 220.48-22, which includes the directional, the temporary sign, and the monument sign. So we have that opportunity to waive. So we'll take those each first, and we'll discuss them, and then we'll make a motion on a waiver and then act on it, okay? Mr. McPartlin's the project lead, so I'll be looking at him to make recommendations. So first up, we have the directional signs. Signs are 5.69 square feet, and the variance required for each sign is 2.69 square feet. So I guess that's 3 square feet is what the are supposed to be. Yep, 3 square feet. So there'd be a variance of 2.69 square feet for each of the directional signs. All right, and if we, do you have a, if we just make a motion or a recommendation, Mr. McPartlin, on that? How do I do it that way?
Of all the proposed signage, the directional signs are the ones that I'm most supportive of waiving the requirement. I think
Pull that up a little bit, okay?
in hearing some of the initial comments from the developer, it sounds as though traffic flow with the separate ATM and retail bank location it's key to sort of for wayfinding purposes to have these directional signs at the points of entry. And, you know, being just over 3 foot tall and 2 feet wide, you know, I don't see this as a huge ask. So I would move that we waive these directional signs.
Okay, so motion to waive the directional signs. I'll second that motion. Any other discussion at all on that? Concerns?
Agreed. I think in a big parking lot, I think it actually would be helpful to have it be something that's visible.
Okay, anybody else with concerns at all or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll just do a show of hands and make it easy here. Okay, all those in favor of granting the waiver for the directional sign at 2.69 square feet times 2, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous for the waiver of the directional sign. Okay, next up, we got number 4 on your packet for the denial letter, temporary sign. So this is a temporary sign for the construction. It's a non-illuminated sign. It's allowed is 16 square feet in area and the sign being 32 square feet.
Yeah, page 14.
And it's page 14, right, in the package, this package here that everybody got the handout. If you want to take a look at it, basically it's looks like, I want to use the word 4x8 sheet plywood, but that's what it appears to be. And this would be put up, I guess when you start deconstructing the site, would that be a true statement? And it would stay up until it's in the way, I would imagine, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. It would essentially be there during the time of construction so as to alert, potential customers about when the bank is coming to that location. And because of the way that the site is situated where it's like further down, it's to create for obviously like visibility for the site. So
Okay. All right.
Is there a proposed location for this sign? I apologize if that's on the site plan. I just didn't see it.
it's shown on the signage package. It's not on the site plan, but if you look at the signage package, let me see. Yeah, E24. Yeah,
Okay.
if you go,
So
to the
it's along the
second
main
page,
road.
Yes, E24, that will show you the location of where it's proposed.
What's that, E24?
It's right at the corner of the West Access Road
Yep.
near Panera Bread and the North
Mhm.
Access Road by Taco Bell.
Obviously,
Yeah.
placed in such a way it's not going to impact the view of oncoming or traffic and so on and so forth. Yeah?
Correct.
I generally, I like to see this. I think it's a nice justification for the temporary eyesore that is demolition and construction. And yeah, maybe it does help drive some business too, during the initial open period. So it's basically double the size of what's allowed under temporary signs. I'm not sure if the code contemplates a temporary construction sign, or if we're dealing with more temporary directional signs or promotional signs. I'm not sure. I'd be inclined to also waive this temporary sign. I think we were given a timeline of 6 weeks, start to finish. So I think, as I said, it's a temporary eyesore, and we've got a justification for that temporary eyesore with this.
Okay, so we have a motion to waive the requirements for the temporary sign, allow the temporary sign. Do I have a second on that?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Mr. Scributinez. Any other discussion? I mean, the only comment I had was, it's a 4x8, right? If you take a look at the size font, it seems there's like a lot of open area on top of the sign that's not really doing anything for you, You know what I'm saying? It just seems like it's a lot of blank space there. I mean, I'll support the waiver, but it could easily be, you could cut a foot off the top of the sign and it wouldn't impact anything that you have there from the looks of it,
I mean, we can certainly, to the extent that we can reach out to the sign company and there's any way for them to minimize the top, they
Yeah.
could do it. I think the problem with the signs for Chase is that they're all prefabricated, so they're designed to certain specifications. So there's they come in certain sizes. And so
Yeah.
for the temporary sign, that's.
Like I said, I'll support, I don't want to, nitpick it. Recommendation is. to
But we can
support the sign.
absolutely ask. We can absolutely go back and ask.
So it's not, I don't think it's a big deal.
Mhm.
So,
Well, right, that's the thing is, so there was no way to have it be a smaller size.
So for the so for the temporary sign, that is the temporary sign for a coming soon, for a, Chase Bank is coming, that you're looking at it. So there's,
And that would be as you're driving in, once you get past the Panera,
yes, right there.
and then
Right
you would
before
have it there
turn.
just as you turn, right at the edge of the lot, but it would be facing people as they're coming in to the main entry point.
Yes.
Any other questions?
They recycle them from one site to another?
I've never been asked that question. That's a great question.
That would be the one
yeah, I
thing that
could
would get
certainly-
me on board for this,
Mhm.
because it's just larger than it needs to be.
I would imagine they would, simply because those signs are utilized at all of our Chase Banks. And so because it's the same sign, I can't imagine that they would simply just toss it away because it's not being utilized, unless to some extent it was damaged by weather or otherwise while it was in the field.
You don't actually know, so.
I don't know, so I can't answer that question. I can certainly, like I said, go back to the sign company and to Chase and tell them, that it was a specific request of the board that the sign be recycled, so that, there would be some comfort level by the board that it would be continued in use, after use for this site.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other questions? No? Okay. Let's do another show of hands. All those in favor of approval of the waiver for the temporary sign, that's 2 times 16 square feet to 32, please raise your hand. And that's 6-1 with Ms. Gold with a nay vote there. Thank you, everyone. And the last waiver that's possible for us is on the monument sign, which is page 5, I believe, with the handout, science package, okay? And on the monument sign, basically, in that case, the monument sign is not allowed. Let me just find it.
Like, didn't have enough for all colors.
Freestanding sign, yep, monument sign, not permitted for individual businesses. The proposed site plan indicates a freestanding monument sign for an individual business before a variance from the sections required, section 2, 2048-21. Mr. McPartlin?
So this is, I guess, one nice thing I could say to the applicant is I think the general design of the sign is in keeping with the other existing architecture, and it seems based on the elevations to kind of blend well with everything, but it would be unprecedented to have a freestanding monument sign in this district. And given that we've got ample signage on the building, all 4 sides, above car level, very, very visible, to my opinion, from the road. This monument sign to me almost seems unnecessary. It probably wouldn't be the first thing that a driver notices anyway. They'll probably notice your big blue logo on the side of the building, frankly. So it seems a bit like overkill to me, and being that our zoning code expressly disallows this type of sign, I'm not inclined to recommend a waiver on this.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to deny the waiver for the monument sign. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Mr. Scributinus. Okay, I agree, Mr. McPartland. It seems to be enough signage on the property, especially with the waiver for the size for the directional signs and in 4 places on the building. Don't want to set a precedent there also for, as businesses change hands in that commercial shopping area. I try and think, there's, on Balltown Road, is there a sign there? I meant to take a.
There is.
And would there be a placement of a Chase?
No, and so that was part of the consideration. So just to give you a little bit of background about why, I greatly understand and appreciate, Mr. McParson's comments, with respect to the signage and the fact that, yes, we are proposing the 4 wall signs in terms of like adequate signage and visibility as a new tenant within this shopping center. The rationale behind proposing a monument sign is because for Chase, the biggest, most important sign for all brand new Chase banks happens to be the monument sign. And so Chase is usually willing to forego. And in particular to this site, we recognize that we are permitted to have the 4 wall signs on all 4 sides of the building, but, wanted to, let the board know that they're willing to consider, they would remove the wall sign on the facade of the building if they were allowed to have the monument sign on that side, because the monument sign really is more important to them than actually having wall signage on that side of the building. And because of where the site is situated, we're not on the main pylon or monument sign essentially coming into the shopping center. So the only visibility we have is once you already come into the shopping center and come toward the site. And so by virtue of the positioning of that wall sign, they felt that that was like a very important kind of central location in terms of directing traffic into the site. That being said, we get what the board is saying in terms of, not wanting to create or allow, precedent for the shopping center. We believe our site is unique in that, we're different from some of the other uses. A lot of the bigger tenants in the shopping center are on the main sign coming into the center. We are not. So it's already known when you're pulling into or off of Balltown Road and coming into Mohawk Commons what the big anchor tenants are. And so the draw for Chase is really once you actually are already in the center of pulling you towards the site. And that's what distinguishes that use from, some of the other existing tenants.
Is there an opportunity to put Chase on one of the one monument sign I'm thinking is on, was it Central Avenue, right?
Yeah, there's one on Central and one on Balltown.
Yeah. Have you approached?
It wasn't permitted as part of our existing lease agreement with the landlord. Certainly to the extent that this board, gives a recommendation or otherwise one way or another, that may be a basis for us to go back and renegotiate with the landlord to see what can be done.
Right, so Panera or China King or Gap does not have a monument sign.
No, none of them have internal monument signs, but I think they're all on that main monument.
Right, I guess that's what I'm saying. Are there any, couple things? I understand the point
Is
about
anybody
Lowe's and, but I
internal,
don't think,
right,
but all
like
this,
us?
but the smaller ones don't have monument signs now. Right, and then, but everyone is listed on the various.
Yeah, I meant to drive by and take a look tonight and I forgot, so
I'm just gonna look
Yeah.
here. Hold on.
to see who was out there or not. But to your point, it's an opportunity, to pursue if you don't get the monument signed by waiver, or obviously you have the opportunity to go to the zoning board of
Mhm.
appeals, and we will take that up depending on the outcome of the vote. Okay. And then, if both cases fail, we'll see where it leads. I mean, it doesn't mean it's end, because like you said, you could maybe get out on the main sign to help realize that Chase is, within the mall, within the
Absolutely.
property.
I mean, I think it's gonna be pretty, you turn into the main lot and Chase is gonna be right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be right there on the right.
Everybody's going to notice this beautiful building as soon as they
Yeah.
go in.
It's also behind a tree on your planning scheme.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so the main monument sign actually does not have that many of the businesses on it. It doesn't even have Panera.
yeah.
Maybe the one on State Street
The
does?
State Street one's larger.
Yeah.
It is larger, yeah.
Well, Bed Bath and Beyond is no longer there, so there might be an opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, fight for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we have a motion and a second to deny the waiver for the monument sign. Is there any other discussion on this at this point in time? No? Okay, let's do a show of hands. All those in favor of denying the monument sign as recommended, please show your hand, raise your hand.
Denying.
Isn't that for denial? That's for denial, okay. All right, so that's it for waivers. Now we're going to move to recommendations to the ZBA. And we'll have a new recommendation, which would be the monument sign that we just discussed. So let's start with that since we're on that topic, okay? I'm assuming you want to take the monument sign to the zoning board of appeals?
Yes,
Okay, all right. So.
at least at this moment.
yeah.
Until we have.
Yeah, so we'll take action on it and, make our recommendation, and that way, if you proceed, you'll be able to have it on the agenda and have our recommendation, all right?
Great.
All right, so monument sign, we've already had the discussion on that. Basically, we have 3 questions we need to answer in our recommendation. The first being the monument sign will have effect on the comprehensive plan. And this is when I was talking to Ms. Kim about this. This is always a tough one because usually we go both ways on effect on comprehensive plan. So, Mr. McPartlin, do you have a recommendation for effect on comprehensive plan for the ZBA?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, that it sort of seems as though the effect on the comprehensive plan is inextricably linked to what does the zoning code, how does that guide us? So I would say this has to have an effect on the comprehensive plan simply because currently there's no monument signs allowed under our code for this commercial center, shopping center zone. So I would say it does have an effect on the comprehensive plan.
Recommendation, it does have an effect on a comprehensive plan because it's not consistent with the ordinances. Okay. Kim?
Just to comment on the discussion, the comprehensive plan on Mohawk Commons, it does recognize that the design standards for the commercial zoning district were enacted before Mohawk Commons was built, which is the most highly dense shopping area in the town. So I mean, it does mention that the town should review the permitted uses. I mean, I know this is area, but to diversify development in commercial zoning district, and then specifically calls out Mohawk Commons. So it was an implementation task that I'm not sure it's followed through, but I can speak more on it if you.
Okay.
We've been, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, this is a discussion we've had, and I think it's always somewhat unclear.
Correct.
Because because it really isn't specified in the comp plan one way or the other. I think what has been said, and I've heard this said before, is that the zoning is not consistent with it, but that's not expressly set forth in the comprehensive plan, within the letters of the comprehensive plan itself.
Right, and this is one I've always struggled with, because I think over the years, we kind of changed how we always make this. Typically, it ends up being, it always is an effect, because if it isn't with the ordinance or the subdivision ordinance or town code, it's, we've always defaulted that there is an effect. So that's something we need to, to consider. I don't think it's certain cases where it's clearly in effect, like a use variance, right? Keyhole that where it's clear. And I'm not trying to change your mind, Mr. McPartlin. But because I don't think it really is going to impact the zoning board of appeals. But we have a recommendation that there is an effect on the comprehensive plan. It's not consistent because it's not consistent with the code. All right. And that would be the recommendation of ZBA. So let's just do a show of hands and see if we're consistent with that. So there is an effect on the comprehensive plan. I'll stick with it just to be consistent in past approvals. And that's all except for Mr. Oster. You have that? Okay. And then suitability, is it suitability for basically for the area proposed, Mr. McPartlin?
Yeah, and David made a good point. I think goes to suitability. For me, trying to envision this sign in the context of the entire development, I don't see it catching anyone's eye traveling by as a means of exposure for the business. I think it's the type of thing, it's a nice architectural feature that someone might notice as they're entering your building. But the building as a whole is very aesthetically pleasing. And I think when it comes to the intended use of wayfinding and attracting customers to your building, I think what's approved and what's allowable within the code does a fine job of that. So I don't find this to be suitable.
Okay, recommendation is not suitable. I guess I would add that, I think we mentioned about setting precedents. None of the other businesses have monument signs in the commercial shopping in Mohawk Commons. So we don't want to, start precedents where each individual store would be in front of us looking for the same recommendation or variance. And as mentioned by Mr. McPartlin, you have facade signs on all four sides of the building and directional signs, and I think it'll be clear and easy to see. So the recommendation is not suitable. All those agreed it's not suitable, please raise your hand, and that's unanimous. So the recommendation of these ZBA is that the area or requested variance is not suitable. And the recommendation, Mr. McPartlin, to the ZBA?
So all that being said, I think we have to recommend that the requested variance for the monument sign be denied.
All right. And I would state for all the reasons, setting precedents, enough signage on the property, not consistent with the ordinance. So I would also support that. So all those recommend denial. the zoning board of appeals, please raise your hand. And that's also unanimous. Okay? But again, the zoning board of appeals has the authority and you can state your case in front of them and they may or may not agree with us, okay? All right, next we have a couple of area variances, one being the side yard. And take a look at the file, the denial letter. Let's see, setback should be 150 feet, and this property is going to be, proposal for this site plan is 111.3 feet. Therefore, a 38.7 foot side yard setback variance is required. And
This is really, I think, just born out of the unique arrangement of two different parcels within this shopping district, whereby we've got the parcel on which this proposed development exists, and then a parcel for the Target building. And the property line for that parcel that contains the southwest corner of that parking lot is close enough to the proposed development. That being said, I really feel as though it's a minor request for variance, and I'm completely in favor of.
Okay. So again, we'll have to ask 3 questions. Effect on a comprehensive plan, our favorite question. And again, so this is the same situation. If you
Yeah.
support the monument sign saying it was an effect on a comprehensive plan, I believe, I'm going to be consistent, but I'm also going to ask the town attorney, which has been looking at things for us, to maybe put some guidance ahead for the future for us on this. Some of them just aren't so clear. Okay, so is that true, Mr.? So there is an effect on a comprehensive plan, Mr. McPartland? Is that-
I suppose there is.
Okay. All right, so that's the recommendation. Any other discussion at all?
Well, I looked at the walkability of this particular site is well laid out for traffic flow and pedestrian-friendly traffic flow. So I kind of saw some walkability associated with that, but not from homes, but just that rather than just go with a cookie cutter offset and put the building in the middle, there's a lot of thought put toward the use of the ATM and then walkability within that area. So I kind of thought that was an association to the comprehensive plan, but it isn't walking from the residents or from the homes.
Okay,
Just a thought.
anybody else?
No, and again, it's just within the 4 corners of this, and in terms of just developing that area as being part of the town, that yes, they're technically if you start talking about the zoning itself, everything is always going to be inconsistent with a comp plan, but this is not anything specifically about side yards within that area that that is inconsistent. So I will act like I did on the other one.
Mr. McPartland, you agree with again, I don't want to force you into saying it's not consistent with it. I'll give you an opportunity here to see where you're at.
Yeah, I think if we're taking all of the areas of the comprehensive plan that address this district, Mr. Laflamme brings up a good point about how a goal for implementing a more walkable district. And so certainly this layout, I would agree, is in keeping with that goal with the comp plan.
Right.
So, there could be a case made.
Right.
No
Okay, and I agree with you. This is a tough one. No effect on the comprehensive plan.
Sure.
Okay. All right, any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, would we, or maybe it's a question for Alexis, could we find it inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, but still find it suitable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think
Got a
it's,
lot of-
Yep,
Yeah.
we do that. We do, in fact, it's
that's what we were
usually,
saying, that the word effect is strange here because you would think it would be
Yeah.
harmonious,
Yeah.
consistent.
I think the suitability question really to me is
that and the
more-
recommendation, yeah.
the more important. I mean, it's not that the other one's not important, but I think it's,
Yeah.
this is really, that's where it comes down to, is whether the change is going to be somehow going to be something that's going to be net negative for the town.
And there's another way of looking at the effect on the comprehensive plan issue. It's whether the effect itself is negative or positive. I don't think this one would make much difference either way.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like there is not an effect.
And what's funny, I think the code calls out specifically effect, and years ago, I remember we used to always say, is it consistent? which wasn't correct because that's not what the ordinance says, but we used to always say consistent and, hey, it doesn't impact the comprehensive plan. And this wouldn't impact anything. Right?
If this were a residential zone, I'd probably feel very differently about it. But it's a commercial zone, it's one business after another, and I just don't see a significant effect either way.
Okay.
Is there a reason why they didn't want to put it right in the middle, like the way the Ruby Tuesdays is?
They laid out different designs, but in order to achieve essentially all of the programming required for the building and to separate the two uses to allow for the drive-up ATM, it just worked that there was really just no other alternative that they looked at that was really feasible for them, that they could provide for their programming and, allow for kind of like maximum usability of the site. So this layout worked best.
I would also note, if you're taking a look at the site as a whole, the Taco Bell building, at least at first glance, would appear to be within that setback as well. So, that kind of,
Yeah.
I have,
Yeah, what happened, I think originally when Mohawk Commons and I was on the board,
Yeah.
I can't remember if I was on the board, or was on the ZBA, but I was involved and, we looked at the perimeter, right? And we really looked at the perimeter and there was setback variances granted for like the rear property line and a lot of things. But then later on, the developer, started piecemealing where the businesses within the approved boundaries would go. And each one wasn't taken separately at that point in time. But now as we're getting reuse of the properties, we're starting to, try to be consistent with the code, basically.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing this more often as businesses change hands and.
But there are existing nonconformities that are up to 60 feet within the lot line. They get that close.
All right.
I think like, you can see the lot line down here. These two buildings, I think are both within 60 feet.
And I can understand where if you put the building in the center, it would, traffic circulation for the, the ATM or whatever would be, compromised and it might be
commingled,
tighter.
right.
And this kind of allows that to freely flow, So the recommendation is that there is no effect on the comprehensive plan. All those that say there's no effect on the comprehensive plan, please raise your hand. And we're unanimous on that. And suitability for the area which is proposed, Mr. McPartlin?
Yeah, I think it's been widely discussed already, but Chase explained to us pretty clearly at our last meeting how, given the size of this plot, they were able to pursue what they view as an ideal layout for a pad development, where they've got the ATM use separated from the retail walk-up location. So I do think that the traffic flows nicely, and this layout allows for a good number of parking spaces, really, I think, far beyond the requirement, and also less impervious surface. So just taken as a whole, I think the location of the building within that side yard setback is suitable.
Okay, recommendation is suitable, and I concur with Mr. McPartlin. I mean, it's a reutilization of an existing parcel that's been vacant for, 3 years? A couple of years?
Yeah, I looked at it.
And so, so we're working with, pre-existing conditions, and to your point about what works best for the applicant on the site, as stated by Mr. McPartlin, I don't see any impact, so I agree with Mr. McPartlin. So it's suitable is the proposal. All those to say it's suitable as proposed, raise hands, and that's also unanimous, okay? And the recommendation to the ZBA, Mr. McPartlin?
I recommend granting the variance, the side yard variance.
Yep, area variance to recommend approval of that from the ZBA. And all those in favor of that recommendation for approval, please raise your hands again. Make sure we get everybody. That's also unanimous. Okay, so we're all set on the 38.7 foot side yard setback variance recommendation. And finally, I think it's finally, the parking spaces. And on the parking spaces, where are we? Required part. So just wanted to mention, there's a chart that we got, and I talking to Ms. Robertson, chart didn't agree with the denial. The chart in the packet may be, the electronic packet might agree, but I didn't get a chance to look at that one. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody. So the actual variance is, let me find it here.
290.
Yeah, I just want to read it. Oh, here we go. Okay. So it's 335,876 square feet, requiring 1680 parking spaces. The proposed site plan has 1386 parking spaces because of the changes, obviously, from Ruby Tuesdays to the Chase Bank. Therefore, a variance of 294 spaces required. Okay. All right. One thing I just want to point out, when you do take a look at the chart, and excluding, the Ruby Tuesdays, the Chase transition, I mean, the things that jump out at me, to me, is Lowe's and Price Chopper. Obviously, they're low on their requirements based on the site geometry. I think, from my experiences going over there, it seems like the parking, even though it's lower than the requirements, and there was previous variances granted, it seems like it works. I think the biggest threat would probably be, and I think Lori would agree with me, is Price Chopper, Marshalls, that area. If it gets maybe on a weekend, it might get pretty dense over there at the parking. I haven't seen any problems at Lowe's, and I haven't seen any problems at any other locations. So I just want to throw that out there for
And
food for thought.
frankly, the only time I've seen problems at the Price Chopper end is like the day before Thanksgiving.
Which is true of a lot of grocery stores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, we want Price Chopper to be successful in Lowe's. And these changes here, I don't think it would impact the parking over there no matter what, because I don't think anybody was parking at Ruby Tuesdays to go to Lowe's or to Price Chopper anyway. So,
Unless they're trying to get in their steps.
Hmm?
Unless they're trying to get in their steps.
yeah, trying to get your steps in. All right. So, sorry, Mr. McFarland, I just want to throw that out there. So,
Yeah.
so the variance is for 294 parking spots, and we'll have to do the same three questions again. As soon as I find where we're at, here we go. So the effect on a comprehensive plan, our favorite question again.
So I'll just jump, with respect to parking, it's, the comprehensive plan does specifically address that we should evaluate commercial zoning standards to more directly address present trends in commercial development by considering parking standards and requirements. So, that was call out. So, the effect, it's up to you. The effect could be that it's consistent with, the
Yeah.
effect is,
Could be positive or negative,
implementing-
and depending on the situation over there, right?
And the other part, is like, I think we also have terminology in there about promoting green spaces in the town. And so I think that's what they're trying to do here is, part of it is trying to like add some greenery to it that you could actually, one more argument why it's actually consistent.
There's some food for thought for you there. So it decreases the parking, but it increases the green space, and the comprehensive plan recommends at least evaluating the parking. So whether or not this is a positive thing, I guess, is the bottom line.
Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable moving that we state that there's no effect on the comprehensive plan for this. As Mo mentioned, as Mr. Oster mentioned, it's a bit of a trade-off between impervious space and green space. And so this is a move in the correct direction there. And I think this chart that's provided by the planning department really paints the picture here. We still are far exceeding a parking requirement if you're looking specifically at the requirement for retail banks, and this particular parcel is providing well beyond the one for every 200 square feet. The issue here is really more a function of overall square footage on the district as a whole.
Yep, very good. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so the recommendation is no effect on a comprehensive plan for the parking changes for the 294 car variance. And no impact. Please raise your hands again. And that's unanimous. Thank you. And I agree. I think we have to look at each on a case-by-case basis, and I don't see a problem here, especially since none of the other parking has changed. It's strictly this site, and we don't expect this to have an impact on Lowe's, Price Chopper, or any of the other properties on the site. Okay? And suitability for the area proposed, Mr. McFarland?
Again, I believe that it is suitable. So it's, like I said before, I think simply it's simple enough just to state 43 spaces appears to be ample parking for this use.
Yes, I would note that most trips to the bank are of short duration, and there's also the drive-up facility, which also reduces the need for more parking.
Right, and I agree with that. And as Mr. McPartlin stated, 43 proposed spots, right? And requirement, even if you were a standalone bank, would be 18 basically. So more than adequate there. And don't expect it, as I already stated, impacting the other businesses. So I don't see any problem. So if I was going to steal away parking spots, it would potentially impact somebody else. I might have a different opinion, but I don't see that happening. So I'd also say it's suitable for the area proposed. So all favor for suitability as a positive recommendation that is suitable. Okay, that's unanimous. And finally, the recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I would move that we recommend granting the variance, parking variance of 294 spaces.
Okay. And all those in favor for ZBA, recommendation of grant the area variance? That's also unanimous. Okay, so got through those. Positive recommendation basically on the side yard parking spaces. The only thing, obviously, your concern is the monument sign. And we can, take that to the ZBA and we'll see what happens there. And
But like, I would also see if you could get the client to withdraw that. I mean, I don't see the zoning board probably differing too much from the planning board. I mean, I would have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, just based on the input from this board, we always go back and, we the consultants and attorney go back and talk to Chase and say, hey, this is your likelihood of success. You're getting this, you're getting a positive recommendation for that, and balance it out. And a lot of times they come back and they change the relief that they're seeking, which is why I was saying, so as of tonight, we're asking for, to move forward to allow us to go to the zoning board, but that absolutely does not mean that we may not withdraw that aspect of the application before we even get there.
And when is the zoning board?
October 16th.
October 16th, okay? All right, and you're not on the agenda for anything else tonight. Do you have anything further for us while you're
I
up
just
there?
had one quick question. There were a couple of other items that we had indicated they were more existing nonconformities at the site, but I guess you had reviewed the list of essentially everything that we potentially tagged, and ultimately these were the items that required relief.
Yeah, the percentage of building coverage, like, I think I talked to the engineer, if he recalculates it, it shouldn't have been triggered.
Good, okay.
Yeah, it's actually not even an existing nonconformity.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then the other setbacks, I guess, were,
Oh. Yeah, this building is just gonna be the closest setback. I don't think it really has any other, it's not too close to any of your other lot lines. Yeah.
okay,
Okay,
great.
all right, so good luck at the ZBA, and then assuming you get through the ZBA and where you're at, we'll continue on the site plan review process to keep it moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. All right, and we have, let's see, as far as discussion items, we have one on the agenda. Maybe we might have some additional discussion, but we'll start with 2721 Balltown Road sketch plan for discussion. And we have Mr. Paleshi representing the applicant here with us tonight to discuss this and show us what they're thinking. And we don't have a formal application on this. Is that a true statement? So this is
Just discussion.
is basically, hey, what do you think, everybody? And kind of get some feedback. How you doing? Good.
This is actually the doghouse.
Thank you.
These are the new houses.
So we'll have to explain
Yeah,
effect on the comprehensive.
yeah, I've talked to her before the meeting. So,
Good evening.
good evening.
Hi, my name is Paul Nichols. I am a real estate professional located in Latham. I'm looking at a site at 2721 Balltown Road, also a veterinarian building, which I think most of you are familiar with. And I was introduced to this property earlier this year. I know there's been some conflict between the neighbors and between the existing business. And we were given the opportunity to put an option on the property and see if we could develop something that worked for all parties involved. So with that, I met with two of the more vocal neighbors associated with the property. I've also obviously know at this point the owner of the property, and I think we've, at least all of them seem to be appeased with the concept that we want to put together as it pertains to the site. And with that, Luigi, I guess you can kind of walk through maybe that concept. and any questions we can answer.
Thank you, Paul. All right, so as Paul mentioned, 2721 Balltown Road, the Aqueduct Animal Hospital here. What I have here is an overlay or aerial overlay showing the existing building, detached garage, and where a lot of the dogs go out and do exercising, which is primarily adjoining or closest to the single-family residence on Schwaber Drive. The parcel is 3.39 acres. It's got 200 feet of frontage, and it goes back roughly almost 700 feet, 680 feet to the back. The lay of the land, it sits higher on Balltown Road, and it slopes back to the northwest to a low point on site. There's an existing pond, if any of you have walked the site, existing pond with some wetlands in the back. So the back portion of the property is hardly developable. The current zoning is RP. It's professional. And what we'd like to do, we're here tonight to get your ideas or your thoughts on a use variance to allow for 24 apartment units. So the existing building that's there now would be demolished to make way for 24 three-story apartment units. So when we looked at this layout, everything would be in conformance to an R3 zone. So as far as the setbacks, the side setbacks, 40 feet minimum to the building structures, the green space, the density, and so forth. The R3 density allows 10 units per acre. What we're proposing is around 7 units per acre. So we're lower on the density. The setbacks, as you see from side to side, we are falling within the 40-foot side yard setback. The front yard, the zone requires 70 feet from a major corridor, and what we're proposing is 50 feet. We're proposing 50 feet, which is greater than what currently exists there today. The existing building is maybe 35 to 40 feet from the right-of-way of Balltown Road. So the 50 feet that I'm giving you is to the property line, so you've got an additional 15 feet to the roadway. So what we're proposing is, one curb cut, reducing the curb cut access off of Balltown Road. Again, if you've been out there, it's a pretty wide curb cut, in and out, there's no direction. And we would eliminate that and propose just one in and out into this complex. The R3 zoning allows 2 parking spaces per unit, half of those spaces being covered or garaged. So we're proposing 16 garages with 8 covered. That provides the minimum requirement for the covered spaces. And then we also have 30 parking spaces, surface parking spaces, whether they be in front of the garage or overflow parking for any guests. Stormwater would be at the low end of the site. It would all be in conformance to the New York State DEC stormwater regulations. The project has public water and sewer right out on Balltown Road. Due to the elevation of the site dropping off, one of the buildings would need a grinder pump. We would force main it up and tie into the town's gravity sewer main on Balltown Road. And the water would connect off of Balltown Road as well. So we would bring in the water main and have a hydrant. And obviously we would conform to the fire department standards. We did set up the dumpster area here so that, we can get a sort of a T turnaround for the fire trucks. But what you see here is approximately 78% green space. So I think, from what you have out there today, currently, we believe that going to multifamily is a transition from single family to, a major corridor like Balltown Road. You still have that residential characteristic adjoining. You certainly can't do single family or single family subdivision because of the narrow lot that it is already. So to get rid of, as Paul mentioned, to get rid of a headache to some people of what the current use is versus what 24 apartment units would bring, is a lot less intensive use as what's there now, or what could be there as the current zoning, whether it be an office building, that's there with cars in and out, as opposed to a residential characteristic. Also with me tonight is Bob Butcher. He's the architect, so I'm going to turn it over to him. He's got some colored renderings of the building, so take a look at that, and we'll be open for further discussion.
You don't mind if you could put it on that easel, because I think they got the camera focused because they record. I'd appreciate that. It'd help them out.
Thanks, Luigi. Good evening, everybody. Bob Butcher, Design Logic Architects. Just to follow up on Luigi's point of site orientation, we did orient the architecture to the side of the site so as to try and be as least impactful on the neighbors in the current subdivision to the adjacent property. So that sort of drove the design guidelines for site placement. Here's just a view from the entry from the street side, and trying to create a very townhouse looking concept. The project would have, as Luigi mentioned, internal garages. This view doesn't show the covered garages because I wanted to just sort of show the architecture a little bit, give the board a little feel for that. A combination of undulating elements and some single sloped roofs. All the roof elements would be on the same slope, and just try and create these little anti-spaces entering the ground floor apartments. And again, with the internal garages. Here, given the proximity to the two units that would face Balltown Road, again, want to create that same architecture on the rear of the structures. So it's just not sort of a flat, uneventful design in the back. And that would be some of the side elements as well that we would incorporate to have a full vernacular for the building on all four sides. So again, just a series of the materials, a series of neutral tones, varying degrees of color, varying degrees of stone, standing seam metal roofing, composite panels, a lot of trim, and try and really give it a very residential character.
Just for my clarification, so it's 1, 2, 3, 8 units, right? So 3 apartments each unit,
Yes, in
right?
the module.
There's 2 garages with each unit,
Yes.
so one of the residents would have the covered parking space.
Correct.
And as far as size, would like the top floor be larger, or are they split? How's it arranged internally?
Well, they are, the ground floor units are single flat units, and then the remaining 2 units in the module are townhouse units, and they're 2 stories within the same module. So this would be a module here, and that would be a flat unit behind here, and then these would be townhouse units that wrap around.
Does the garage go specifically with the?
Yes, the garages go specifically with the townhouse.
So
units.
your ground
Yeah,
floor would have a covered space.
correct.
Okay. All right.
But they're 24 units total?
Yes.
So anybody who has a garage has stairs to the first and to the second floor? is what you're saying?
Yes, there's entrance from the town to the townhouse here. That would be a stair to the second, and the garage also has a door into that little foyer. So the foyer from the garage and the front entry collect, and then there's a single set of stairs that goes up to the townhouse. Yes, and then this door recessed back is for the ground floor flat units.
So no elevators.
No elevators, all single points of entrances for the residents.
Just so I understand what we're working with in terms of roof design, what's the finished building height proposed there?
Actually, yeah, 34 feet, 10 inches.
Luigi was on top of that one, right?
How tall is the existing vet office now?
2 stories.
Yeah.
So it's like 24.
Yeah, I think it's like 27 feet.
Just guessing.
And just out of curiosity, just because, and the existing houses that are behind it, like what's the maximum height on those houses? The houses that are like on the other side that are
Over
Schwaber and yeah.
Well, probably, yeah, I would say with probably those houses, I would imagine would have probably an 8 or a 10 on 12 roof. So I would say they're probably over 30 feet would be my guess, or at least at the very least at
So
30
it only
feet.
would be a 4-foot difference between.
Well, here because of what I'm doing here is this is the boss dimension at 34 feet, 10 inches. And then all my sloped roofs are all below that 35 feet. With a typical single family house, that would be a full gabled roof front to back. It would have a much higher slope. And even if it was 2 stories at this height, that would go a full front to back, probably 40 feet deep truss. It would be at least 30 feet would be my guess.
So there's not going to be, you don't think there's going to be this big jump up in size where you're going to going to everything, and then all of a sudden you're going to have house and then big,
No. And that's why I'm trying to keep that 35-foot height maximum here, and then bring the slopes downward from the 35-foot height versus the houses that bring it up to the 30+ foot height. So visually, it's really not going to be any difference given the scale of the
The
grade.
other thing we should keep in mind too is that, Balltown Road sits up higher, and this first 6-unit building is going to be already 2 to 4 feet lower than the Balltown Road. And as you go northwest onto the site, you're dropping another probably 6 to 8 feet as you go down. So you're going to be lower in elevation. And if I recall correctly, Schwaber, they'll be sitting up a little higher, so they'll be higher, and we'll be, I would say with this design, you're at the same level.
Yeah, that was one thing I was going to ask is, clearly, I don't have to tell you, the wetlands in the middle of the site present a bit of a challenge. Does that pretty much render the western half of the site unusable for development?
Yeah, so there is a finger of wetlands that comes up where it's less than 1/10 of an acre that we're proposing to disturb. And if you took the town of Niskayuna's 25-foot buffer to the final wetland, let's say, we're setting that up, and we have our stormwater at the bottom of that, at the start of that 25-foot buffer. So if you take your wetlands, you go 25-foot buffer, and then I have my stormwater outside of that before you even get to our parking in our building. So we have plenty of buffer between what, we're truly developing from roadway or building to where that wetland boundary would start.
Does the wetland extend into the Schwaber Road development? Or did it previously?
It terminates right here.
Okay.
Approximately, I don't know, 35 feet from the southern property line. Everything that you see here drains northeasterly. The Mohawk is up in, in this direction, right down from Balltown Road. But everything kind of drains towards the back of these homes. What we're proposing is our own stormwater practice, which we would detain, and then we would slowly discharge it into the wetlands, no greater than what is happening today.
Just as a general comment, it's unfortunate that more of the area in the back of the lot couldn't be used.
We agree, yeah. We would love to use it.
Yeah.
It's a tough site, it's the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough site to develop for no matter what would be put forth at this location.
Okay, not to maximize every tiny little space of a lot. I do not agree with you at all.
What,
Oh,
what,
Totally okay
what I'm
to have
saying,
the
Laura,
back
is
half not developed.
I guess where I'm going with that is I sort of have an issue with the encroaching on that 70-foot front yard setback, but I do understand that you're really limited in terms of locating the number of units you're looking for in developable area of the. Did you explore locating part of these units on the other side of the wetlands? Is that even a possibility?
So with the 25-foot buffer, we'd have to encroach within that to get to that side. It's longer road, more impervious surfaces, a lot of negative impacts to try to cross the wetland side. We did look at other iterations on putting the building units on what would it be, the southwest side, like, the backs facing the single family homes. And, we met with town staff and we thought maybe that wouldn't be such a good idea because then, the new units their back would face the backs of the single family. So we looked at this option to give the maximum buffer from our building unit to the existing single family. So we did look at some different layouts and, right now we feel this is, the best of, the few that we've done to make it work.
Okay, so just a couple comments. So RP, you mentioned single family, but permitted uses are single family medical and non-medical, professional office, religious education facilities or places of worship, or care facilities for elderly or child care. Those are the permitted uses, right? So this potential proposal, I'm here looking for feedback, would require a use variance and a recommendation from this board to the Zoning Board of Appeals, whether we're on board with it or not. That's the bottom line. And then for, of course, that's the heavy, right?
Yes.
And so basically, they're here to try to get some feedback from us. Personally, one of the things, obviously, positives, right? We got to look at positives and negatives, is that, we have a non-conforming use. I'm not sure what the status of the animal hospital is, whether they are still going over to Rexford, Clifton Park area. No idea what's going on. If they were to relocate, if there was another person that wanted to pick up the practice from Dr. Pike, they could continue, right? Continue on the non-conforming use, and animal hospital potentially could stay, right? If, this doesn't go forward or any other application for permitted uses doesn't go forward. So, we've had some issues with noise, obviously. The town has had some issues with the current use, non-conforming use. So this proposal does help eliminate some problems and good reuse for the property, but it's also not permitted and requires use variance and density, I'm sure, is going to be a concern. I know you're looking at, maximizing, your dollar, right? But there's got to be some point where you do the calculations where you can keep chopping off apartments where you come to a point where, that's the minimum required. Is that where you're at with this proposal?
We are, I think, Paul. Absolutely. No, I can definitely tell you on the density side.
Yeah, just microphone, please. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're right at the limit right now. And part of that's driven a lot by the infrastructure cost and the price that, quite frankly, the seller is willing to part with. So we started at, and in fact, I could speak a little bit to a traffic study we had done. We started at 30 units is what we thought. And then, after some feedback, took it down to what we thought was a minimum we could do is 24. Speaking of the traffic study, we did have one done and based on the 30 units, and it's about, I think the usage in and out during peak hours is almost 50%. So it's actually at 24, it's much less than what the current traffic volume is at that site. So that's certainly a favorable finding as well.
Wait a minute, this would actually be less use?
Correct.
Than the business.
Than the current business there.
How many on average in an hour, how many cars come out of the vet?
I think it was something like, don't quote me on this, but it was something like, because I looked at it today, it was like 5, during peak hours, it was like 3 to 5 in and like 8 to 10 out or something like that. And it's twice that for the animal hospital.
That's based on textbook or actual data?
Actual, what was the name of the company, Luigi?
Gordon Stansberry.
Yeah.
That's
Yep,
very
actuals.
surprising.
Yeah.
Because that's not consistent with my experience.
Yeah. No, it's, that was their findings.
I guess that might be my other question.
Apartments do go, like when you look at the textbook, right? They're like 0.4 per unit is usually what the going rate is for apartment units. 0.4 to 0.5.
Might want to come over to the microphone if you don't mind, Luigi, appreciate it.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that, it would be spread out over a different period of time. I would imagine it'd probably be more general flow throughout the day into the vet as opposed to where the apartments are probably more steered towards like 8 to 9 and 5 to 6.
The traffic study that was done for the project, right, compared to current use during the peak hours, right? So from, what would it be? It would be 7 in the morning to 9. And then in the afternoon or PM hours would be 4 to 6. So that's what you look at. DOT wants you to look at the peak hours of operation. Yes, you're right. There's always vehicles that are going in throughout the day, but you look at the peak hours when everybody else is going to and from, work and during those 2 busiest hours of each day.
And even for those busiest hours of the day, it's actually less.
Yes.
Based on 30 units.
How many
And we can certainly
days-
provide that study.
Yeah, no, and again, as always, I think it's the question we always, there are sophisticated analyses that come into it. It's somehow, in my mind, defies logic, but I guess that's why we also have our own people who look at this stuff to verify it, it's.
How many days did they do the study on?
How many days they were out there for the day? And we
One
did,
day, like a Friday? Because if it was a Friday, you've got an inflated study.
that's something we can look at.
Because that's when they get most of their boarders.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what, I don't have the copy of the report.
I guess either way, not knowing the other side, but on this side, I mean, it's no more than 13 in and out during rush hours. They're basically saying this site. So, and which is consistent with, we own and manage a lot of other apartments. That's pretty consistent based on the number of units that we would see. But absolutely, you're welcome to the report, and we would look at that information to double check that, to your point.
How about, there's a comment, I believe in the agenda statement about, the long, the buildings. I know you're trying to break it up with the setbacks and the jogs and the fascia, whatever you want to call it, But did you think about, going multiple buildings and maybe, a path, between the buildings or something like that? I know there's probably construction costs are probably cheaper to do it this way, but from a visual aspect, and light, and is that something you could consider?
I think it was always, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but it was always a density issue. So we lost so much of the parcel as you get, close to the pond back there, that it just, I don't know if there's a way to break those buildings up and not lose units.
Yeah, we certainly looked at that, but even any meaningful space in between the modules wouldn't accomplish a light gain like you might think it would. So, I mean, even if we put 20 feet in between, you can see it would go.
One thing it would accomplish though is like for the apartments, it would give them more windows and maybe improve.
Well, these are very large windows. All the multifamily I do tons of commitments to glass, oversized patio doors are larger, transom lights. The windows are going to be larger than typical apartments. The interior layouts really have a great floor area of natural light versus a typical apartment. We really do go bigger on the windows.
And in fact, it's interesting, we happen to actually manage, Bob designed a very similar project along a creek out near Troy. It's wildly successful, it does very well, and it's not unlike this, where it's kind of a continuation of buildings, and it's 35 units, in fact. It's full.
It looks going to look very different than what surrounds it. That's the thing that just jumps out to me.
Yep. And it does not look residential, I'm sorry. It just doesn't fit any concept I have of residential. I've
Well-
seen office buildings that are far more attractive than that.
Aesthetics aside, I think the plan is a good start, but you're missing the concept of trying to take a continuation of row houses and bring some sort of character. I mean, it doesn't look residential at all. Looks like you picked up a little bit of Upper Union Street and a little bit of a shopping plaza. It's all a facade of garages and doors at that level. I think there's some missed opportunities. You've got a pond here that could be a feature, walking paths that could get to it. I think I tend to agree with Chairman Walsh here that spacing the buildings out will give you more natural light, even if it is only 8 to 10 feet. I mean, the neighborhood I live in, I'm separated by a driveway, and I've got 4 windows on that side of the house. Plenty of light comes in, especially, this isn't densely surrounded by trees and or other buildings that would inhibit that. You have the opportunity to get more windows on the sides. There's no windows on the sides except for on the end units. So
Yeah, that's what we're here for. So it was to provide some feedback
That's it.
to potential applicants. So, we'll be frank. I mean, I'm personally get torn, right, as I mentioned, because of the problems with the site and what opportunities are there for development of this site, right? Again, single family, well, as you stated, right? How many homes could you get in there with the pond? 4? A few? And, then if you do the cost analysis, what builder, maybe that's my opinion, right? It's not my own personal opinion. It could be probably tough to tear down that building, just the cost to remove that building and to put, continuation of the other type of homes along the line there. That's a tough one. I'd hate to see the animal hospital relocate and somebody pick it up and continue on. So obviously this is an opportunity, whether or not it's the right opportunity. That's for us to make a recommendation to ZBA if you make application, and for the ZBA to make the decision on use variance, whether you can justify that or not. It'd be nice if there was a little bit more room, so we could, you have more opportunity, to Mr. DiRapino's comment, to utilize, the water feature to get some more light and try to blend as much as possible. I guess it does look a little bit institutionalized, I guess would be the word, is what I would use. But I mean, it looks good, but when you look at it in the context of the single family there and going down Balltown Road, is it right? It's a tough one. It really is,
So like the success of this project would be to make it its own little park-like setting where these residences have use of that pond, maybe have a little park around it. The other development right up here off of Schwaber, one of the things they're doing is they're dedicating one of the parcels to be its own park in that setting. And because you're on Balltown Road and it's difficult to bike and walk, this would be an added feature that you could have as a selling point to these units, because it's going to be difficult unless you leave by a car to get out of there to get to some sort of recreation. So here you could take advantage of the properties that, as part of the parcel, that they would have access to this parkline setting. If there was a way to maybe interconnect these or gracefully curve them and space them out a little bit more and still get your 24 units in, and they look more like townhomes that are residential, I think it would be a little bit more palatable to us to kind of start to talk about it in future meetings.
I just want to confirm too that for school bus stopping picking up, dropping off kids. This would just be another stop on Balltown Road, right? There's no way that the bus would be able to come into the property the way it's designed now, right?
I don't think so. I don't think a bus would go
We
in.
could probably accommodate it, but from other projects that I know of, the school district won't allow the buses to come inside
It's too
the private
long.
site.
Yep.
Yeah, if it was a town road, then yeah, they would have to, but being a private, they wouldn't come in.
State policies, they don't have to go on to dead ends.
So can you guys just speak to why this parcel wouldn't work as a professional office or adult daycare? Or did you explore those uses?
Yeah, we did a little bit of a monetary analysis, and I mean, and in fact, the most viable solution besides multifamily that I thought might exist was some type of medical office. And I literally reached out to probably a dozen of, we all see the emergent care and all these different concepts. And I reached out to every one of them, received no interest. And for me, just the sheer economics, I mean, it just does not work. The mathematics for like a religious affiliation or adult daycare, the math just doesn't work. And I know we'd have to go through that exercise for that variance, but it just, nothing else worked.
There's also that one parcel across from the GE Training Center, right? There's a lot there that's,
Oh, yeah, that's zoned
And
RP.
that-
That was intended to be a.
and that doesn't have an
professional
existing
office.
structure on it that would have to be torn down, so it's pretty much shovel ready, right? I mean,
Right.
and it's not, and that's not going anywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
The reason that parcel didn't develop when there was a person that was interested in developing it is because they had to realign the GE intersection.
Okay.
That made the economics not work for a single office building.
Right, and that's been realigned or approved, right? So we haven't seen anybody coming in on that either. I'm not trying to give you ammo or anything. I'm just saying,
Sure.
I understand what you're saying. And that's why I'm torn because of, what's there now and the potential for redevelopment, positive redevelopment.
Right.
Why apartments rather than actual townhouses?
For me personally, I'm just not in that business. Building and selling townhouses, it's just not what I do. I don't know how viable that market is. Condos, townhouses, I mean, there's risk associated with that.
Did you do a market study on the apartments?
I did.
Because I know the north end of Niskuna has lots and lots of apartments.
I did do a market study with GAR Associates out of Rochester, and it got a favorable recommendation from GAR.
Did it include the River's Ledge apartments that are being constructed?
I'm thinking, I did it probably like 6 to 8 weeks ago. So the market study was inclusive of those projects that are existing and those that they saw online or coming online. And I can't recall which they were forecasting, but it was part of the primary market area. It incorporated Schenectady and Niskayuna. So I assume it was.
I mean, we heard the same reasoning when we were trying to do the buildings by the apartments near the CVS too. It's always, because frankly, just make more money that way. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
That way, what do you mean that way?
I mean, with apartments than condos.
No, I mean, people make a lot of money. I mean, the Amadors and Hodorowskis, they make a lot of money doing condos and townhouses. It's just, we're into the business of owning and managing apartments, not selling and building.
No, I'm just saying, I've just heard this
I
this
don't know.
rationale from several developers
Yeah.
about apartments that the condos are not financially feasible. And I always sit there thinking, shaking my head because it doesn't to me make a lot of sense. I mean, I get that you're trying to do it, maximize your profit, and that's your right. But I'm saying as a result of that, we kind of steer away from some mid-size affordable options for people because it's either big house or condo.
Right.
Yeah.
Or big house or apartment.
Yeah, we hear that.
Because
People don't want to build the condos, but then our public is like, why don't we have condos and townhouses? That's all they want to see. Like when we have a public hearing, we have like 20 people show up and say, please build us townhouses.
Condos are a funny animal because I finance a lot of projects. That's my primary business as well. And I've done a number of condos over the years, but in the last 10 years, it's slowed down quite a bit. And a lot of that is driven by the financing that's available to consumers, where they can't get like the 95% financing that they used to get, or a first-time home buyer might be tempted to go into a condo, but because of some of the different rules and things that govern the mortgages you can get, you got to come up with like 30, 40% equity. So a lot of people say they want condos, you know, you have to go the whole AG process, but then when it's time to close on them, it's, you know, there's a lot of people that just quite frankly can't come up with the cash to close on it.
Yeah, I feel like Niskayuna's population, though, it tends to be downsizing people who have existing homes in Niskayuna that want to stay, and there
Yeah.
not anywhere for them to move.
I don't disagree.
Well-
There could be a market there. I mean, you know, I don't know if they talked, who's building next door? Is it Amador?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they talked to him. He didn't seem interested in it for condos. That would be his world. I just have never built condos myself and sold them.
I don't think it's necessarily talking you out of apartments to condos. It's just the aesthetics of making it look like row house in a pocket park,
Right.
which is what you're starting to attempt to with the plan,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just not getting there elevation wise.
It's tough. I mean, it's a tough site. I mean, we tried to your point, which I think is a good one, play with that pond a little bit. We ran into some wetland issues at one point. I mean, we could tinker around. I mean, these guys know how to do that, you know, and see if we could separate the buildings a little and maybe get a view of the park or the pond. I do think it's a good idea. We have a lot of excess land there to use potentially. So it's actually a good idea.
Did you look at it from the vantage point of putting single family homes there?
Doesn't work
Doesn't work.
for me anyway. I think it was like 3 houses you can get.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Or
If
They'd probably be all, oh, yeah.
It's
okay.
based on what
Otherwise,
they
they'd
wanna
be all
sell.
keyhole lots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
So like Kevin kind of summarized, but there's 2 places the board really has to go. Like, you know, would they be willing to consider an application of multi-use, multifamily, you know, apartments there first? And then if they are, then I think there's a lot of work to do. Right.
Just out of curiosity for clarity on the market analysis, do you know if GAR based it simply on existing residences that have a CO, or was it also based on pending projects?
So when they do a market study, they look at existing homeowners that might consider selling and entering the rental pool. Take an empty nester, for example. Then they look at people moving to the area who might be renters versus home buyers. And then they look at renters to renters, people who are currently renters and they will continue to do so. Then they take a primary market area that they identify, say a 10-mile radius or smaller. And then they basically say, that's the moving population. Here's all the units in inventory. Here's the new units being built.
Okay.
And what's the net demand and what's the capture rate you have to get? What percentage of those available renters? And you want to see a capture rate of less than 20%. And I think this came in like probably 8% off memory. So that usually is the indicator. And then it talks about absorption. How long is it going to take you to fill based on that population? And usually you want to see like, you know, anywhere from 6 to 12 units a month. And it was right in that strike zone. It's probably like 8 to 10 a month
All right.
absorbing.
Thank you.
Yep.
I mean, I guess even taking a step further where I mean, if it was 24 condos, you know, I would probably have equal kind of concern about this layout as it exists right now for all the reasons that I've said before. I mean, again, I'm not going to say don't continue, but I mean, I just think this is far out of character with everything else that's near it. That's would be my concern.
Would a 2-story, like, what if we came back with, I'm just curious, again, we're just talking here, but like a 2-story garden style like apartment that was brand new, would that be more appealing? I guess the point is I don't want to just kind of guess. I want some direction if there is able to get that. You know, for instance, we're building a project in Glenville right now, 76 apartments that I own called Glenesque Apartments. We're almost done. And they're 8 plexes. They're 2 stories, mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. They're very nice. They're just about full. It's been a very successful project, but I'm just curious, is that a design that would work here?
I mean, without knowing, you know, to me, it's the fact that it looks very out of character. And I mean, if something can be done in a way we've talked about in terms of breaking up, I know you keep on coming back to the 24. And I don't know if there's any way to get around it where you have like, you know, 12 units where there's some kind of spacing between it, or at least looks somewhat more like a residential area that's in keeping with everywhere else near it. And again, I'm not I'll defer to some others who I think are more involved in design architecture world over here about what would aesthetically work. I'm just saying in terms of what's there and not only that, you're driving down Balltown Road South, it's like right there.
Right.
So that, it just, as I see that, it just seems going to be somewhat out of character with everything else around it.
And it might be like Luigi was saying, maybe asphalt shingle roofs that you can see that mirror more rooftops of similar neighboring houses. It's tough. I mean, candidly, for me, it's just, I mean, this is like a shoehorn, to be honest with you, with the neighbors in the cellar. I mean, to get to where I am with both of them, it's kind of a challenge. So I can just tell you, this is me personally, if this, I couldn't do one less unit here, and I've told the seller that, you know, if it has to be done less, it's back on you. You know, you have to do it. I just cannot make it work. And that's just me, but that's okay. If it doesn't, it's got to work for you guys.
Yeah, the main thing is
For them.
you need to know, right? I mean, it's,
Yeah,
so you're
that's
spending
all.
time and money to,
That's all.
so we do appreciate,
Yeah, sure.
thoughtful and, your time and coming in, that's for sure,
Yeah.
and the opportunity,
No, thank you.
and we appreciate that. And I know we talked before a little bit about, and so I do have to ask the residents to the north, the old RAP residents, I believe is what it says on the,
Yeah.
and we talked about whether you could acquire a little bit of property to make, obviously this is kind of a rectangular, would make it a little bit less desirable, but would make the other property more desirable in shape. Is that enough? That would give you more space to.
Yeah, I didn't get very far with that. And again, it's one of the issues is I've got a short window with this current seller, and I can't say he's really giving me the time and latitude to make all that happen.
Yeah.
So
Is it on the market? I didn't see, I don't think there's a
I
sign
don't
out
think
there,
it
is
is. It could be, but
So right now it's just internally, you guys are,
trying,
Yeah.
tried.
yeah. So, so I do agree that it's, again, even though the benefit is there over what we have, it's a real tough one to
Yeah,
sell,
I
And if economically, if you can take some of the feedback about, the style of the home, more roof, maybe 2 stories, get some more space. I know that the site is tough, but anything you can do to get, fit better into the neighborhood, could help get my support, and I know it's
Yeah.
difficult for you.
I understand.
It's a real tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not, we're assuming the traffic is better because, based on what you told us. So, that's always a big thing on Balltown Road. But we don't want to, because we have an opportunity here to make things better over there, just say, that's it, and, it's okay, here, somebody wants to do something, so let's just go for it,
Right.
And besides that, even if, you decrease the size or the density, whatever, and we make a recommendation to the ZBA, you still got to get through the, area variances and the use variance.
Sure.
And I mean, obviously, only your the answer to the use variance and whether or not,
Right.
it's adequate enough for the ZBA to grant you the use variance or not.
Sure.
All we can do is make a recommendation.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of work ahead of you too.
Yeah,
So,
understood.
And we tend to look at the traffic study, not just its recommendations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you'd be welcome.
yeah, that'd be later on when we get down to site plan kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And Mr. Nichols, you mentioned that you had talked to the neighbors. Had they given you any feedback about the current designs?
No, they haven't, not the specific designs. When I actually went to and met with both of the more vocal neighbors, I sat at their house and showed them a plan similar to this one at one point, which was the one I mentioned in Troy earlier. And I showed them a couple others too. And they seemed very, towards all of them, they seem very receptive, but I don't want to mislead you. I did not show them that because this was just finished too. So, yeah.
And could you tell us where the one in Glenville is?
Yeah, it's Sacandaga Road, 211 Sacandaga Road. It's right next to the high school. So you can't miss it if you go over there.
I'll try to get a look at it. Maybe I could warm up to it.
Yeah, please. That's
No guarantee
different.
there, because that really does not turn me on.
So this, yeah, the one I
Considering
just,
those beautiful homes that have been put in there.
I want, definitely if you get a chance, go over there. But that project is not this one. That's another one.
Okay.
But still, it's mine. So I'd love for you to go through.
Similar but not same.
Yep.
No. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's the process, okay? But please, at the next privilege of the floor, or, give the planning office a call, okay? Okay.
So I guess to come back, the feedback that he's kind of looking for,
Yeah.
sort of the crucial, the base, the first thing that you'd have to look at is, there's currently a non-conforming use. They've looked at the existing uses on the parcel, and it doesn't seem to be able to convert a non-conforming to a conforming use. So the question is, would we be willing to look at multifamily apartments there, if we could get them to look the way that we wanted them to look.
Yeah, I guess that's the million-dollar question. You got it. Personally, I think I could get there. I know that the density is tight, it's what you need. Obviously, we always like to see less, I know that it meets the requirements for the R3, right? Because of this property, you got, the coverage and so on and so forth is minimal because of the pond and that extra space in the back, right? Be nice, we had some more land where we could, had some more freedom to do things there, and maybe you'd be able to keep the number of units because it does seem like a lot right now because it's all together right up front there, So it's a tough one.
If I could just throw one other thought out there, what would be your thought if we went with one building similar to what we did here, right on, for Knott's Landing West? Because, I'm looking at the site plan and I'm thinking, I could possibly do your underground garage and things like that to, reduce the overall impact and keep it in kind of one roof as opposed to, what you see here with all those garage doors. Just a thought, would one building change anybody's mind, as opposed to what you see here?
I can speak to my viewpoint on this. I think 3 stories for me is a hard sell, given that it's wedged in between a bunch of R2 and R1 development. And it's really tough to say what the existing residents of this neighborhood are going to see out their respective windows. But I think bigger is probably not the answer.
Luigi, do you remember if the stormwater management area directly abuts the back of this lot on the Amador subdivision? I think it does. Because I was thinking you could actually almost make a trail, just a trail through the woods that would get to the detention basin, which is already public property, that would get you to the Amador Homes Road. Is that possible?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know there is an easement along the back to the town for the drainage. So it's possible that there could be some trail connection to that.
What was that? What was the purpose of that though? What were you thinking?
Well, because like Mr. Diarpino was saying, if you could connect it into the Amador Home subdivision, it would give people a place to walk. It's a little bit farther, but they could
park
walk
it,
to the playground. Yeah, so they wouldn't be so isolated on Balltown Road.
Are you thinking just like a hike and bike path, or are you thinking a roadway?
Just a hike and bike path.
Like the bike path.
Yeah, multi-use path. I think the plan concept I can buy into, because you're trying to create this row house condition with a little pocket park, and you've got an opportunity to connect into some recently established residential homes and a rather large development on that end of town, which is all single family homes. They have a small pocket park there that they've dedicated one lot to. This is very close to it. So, we're always looking for opportunities to get hike and bike paths in, and you're essentially connecting neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So that would be, I think, an added benefit to this project if you could find a way to interconnect. And you're involved in, so you're involved here every Monday.
Seems like it.
Yeah, so as
But
I
I think
say,
those are some
My
of the
wife doesn't
merits.
believe me.
And I know we're being hard on you with the aesthetics, but that can change. That's an easy change, and it's gonna get moved around a few times, especially if you move forward with it. But I think some of those features and benefits will help because you got a pretty decent heavy lift coming up in front of the zoning board with 2 issues that you're gonna need a pretty stout backing from us to try to make that
Yeah.
a really good recommendation for it. So, the added benefits of how it not only affects this development, but the 2 surrounding neighborhoods and a couple of the single family homes that are there, and what other benefits you can do picking up pieces of the comp plan of the green space, which I think you did a really good job with. I mean, there's a pond there, which is really unique.
Mhm.
Multi-use places that can get and connect the neighborhoods. A couple hour overlay with some tracing paper on the computer will answer those questions and might steer your decision which way to go.
No, appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a tough one, boy.
Do you think you could do a two-story concept? I feel like we had that conversation before and I can't
Well,
remember.
the only thing I would ask Luigi, I mean, one of my takeaways is I'm going to have him lay over that building, the Glen-esque building, and see, what it does on the site. I mean, it's 45 by 91. So we'll see if it fits or, what variances would be needed with that building. So maybe, I don't know.
Is it got a flat roof? I mean, I think the flat roof.
No, it's a pitch.
Yeah,
it's a
okay.
pitch.
Because I think a flat roof in that neighborhood on Balltown Road is just not going to work either.
Yeah, I mean,
The third story's got to have mansards on it, and it's got to have roof lines to it.
Yeah.
The two-story would be better. Do you think?
Well, even if it was 3 stories, but the third story was an attic with dormers in it, or like a real roof with dormers, I'm not exactly sure where the mechanicals are. They might be out on the north side of the buildings, maybe, on what you're calling the back. There's just opportunities to still work with, I don't mind 3 stories, but if it's a roof line with dormers, that's much different than a third story that's flat.
Yeah.
And I would say that actually looks like 2 buildings to me.
Mhm.
Boy.
And to me, it really just doesn't fit the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, especially when you get on the, I guess it'd be the west side of Balltown heading north, right? You got training center across the street. We had that one empty lot, which is, RP. And pretty much it's residential, environment one, obviously is way off the road, so you don't see that. So it's pretty much residential all the way down on the west side of Balltown. The east side, we've got Schenectady International or SI Group, right? And that's pretty much,
There's a house next to that.
and that's all, single family,
Yep.
There's some homes for sale down there, but
Several homes on the east side of the road even.
we're not sure, what the future holds for, the SI site, hopefully, it stays as a current use and continues on, some fashion similar to what it is now, so.
So I guess you don't have a completely unanimous suggestion, but it sounds like maybe if you made it look more residential.
Yeah, I guess that'd be that's a good point, Laura, that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's a tough site, it's not width-wise, there's not a lot there, I understand that. I do think it's an improvement, I know I met with the applicant and Laura when they came in with the first concept, and that they flipped over, and I think this is much better. I know if I was a resident in Schwaber Drive, that I would prefer this over the first one personally, because that's my opinion, maybe.
Sure.
But I think it's, it's gotten better,
Yeah, I think it's gotten better too.
Yeah.
And I must say, like, we kind of know the parties, and I, really appreciate you exploring it and seeing if there is something that can be done with it, and trying to help in a really difficult situation. I really think, regardless of the outcome, I really appreciate somebody
Yeah.
looking at it and trying to figure it out.
Sure. Yeah.
The zoning board doesn't do cursory reviews, do they? Of things
Yeah,
like this?
I don't think so.
I mean, there hasn't been a precedent of it, has it?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
No.
You could, you might be able to meet with the chair, like you meet with the chair of the planning board, but
I can't think of a precedent where they've done that.
We had the one joint meeting, but that was like they came to our meeting once. I think in fact there's in context of the townhouses. Yeah.
I have nightmares about.
Yeah. But that was more, I think, of a general, not specific to a project. It was more of a general conversation.
yeah.
I think that was a major topic of the conversation,
Well,
but it was not the specific reason for the meeting.
And one of the things that came from that meeting is for us to be
Nope.
clear about our 3 recommendations when we're doing
Yeah.
our recommendations for the area variances and use variances, so.
And Mr. Pleshy obviously has lots of experience going in front of the zoning board of appeals, so it's just a benefit to the applicant, potential applicant here, so.
So, I mean, it's kind of up to you guys. The ball's back in your court. I mean, I think that speaking for this board would probably be willing to look at more concepts if you wanted to bring them back.
Okay.
But definitely more residential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and I do like it flipped. I think that made a big difference and I think it looks a lot better.
Yeah, and again, I appreciate your effort and expense at what you're doing here to the benefit of the town. I do appreciate it.
Sure, you bet. Thanks for the feedback.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thanks. And if you do want to get together at all, I'd be glad to sit, and I'm sure Laura would
Yeah.
sit down again with you if you'd like. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, take you up on that.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone. It's a tough one. Discussion item, let's see. The only thing, Laura, I guess maybe under reports, we want to talk about 1448 Balltown Road, but I know Ms. King has left, but maybe you could give us a status too on the, where the county stands and everything, 'cause I'm not sure I know where we're at on all that. So, okay, Laura?
Okay.
So let's go with discussion items on Balltown Road first.
I emailed you guys that email from the applicant, but they did ask to be adjourned from review of the 1448 Balltown Road Ace Hardware store at this time. So just in my experience, an adjournment, I would say probably 50% of the time means they're not coming back, and then 50% of the time they probably do. But for now, they're going to be off our agenda until further notice.
Yeah.
That's discouraging, really.
Yeah.
Was it the easement?
I think that had a lot to do with it. Yeah.
We were pretty.
I mean, feedback, and we did receive, feedback from one resident at several meetings, but I don't think we discouraged them. I think, in generality, I thought the board was in favor of the use of that site. So I'm kind of surprised, unless there's more to it with the easement than we're aware of, I guess.
Well, maybe it'll be the 50% where they come back.
Maybe it'll come back.
But adjournment's tough. I
You know.
think they can be. So, and then the update on the Knott Street improvement project. The county, had that meeting at town hall where they presented their options. Then they had a comment period for the public. But then the town board and in discussions with the Economic Development Committee, the town wanted to potentially encourage an option that they feel is the best for its residents. So we did a separate email blast asking for comments to us. We will also share those comments with the county and continue an open conversation with them. But I think that comment period that the town had put out to the town specifically was, I have to double check, but I think it's closing soon, which is probably why, we had those comments. But, I think we've heard a lot of, it's actually very interesting. I mean, the people that were here tonight were from the businesses. They definitely have needs and wants that they've expressed. There's a lot of variety in the comments that we get. The public has said, and I've read multiple of their comments, that they really want the barrier because they're very concerned about the cars backing out. So it's not like there's a clear choice. Like you hear these comments, there's a whole contingent of people who are concerned about the backing up safety. Then there's a whole contingent of people who, hate parallel parking. There isn't like a single choice that stands out in where all the comments come from. So it may be that, we're still working for, a compromise or some other idea, but there hasn't been a clear standout in the comments yet.
That's funny because I've had people tell me they do not want the barrier.
A lot of people do, but then we get comments from
Once
other
again.
people who definitely
Right.
want it. It's very interesting. There is not a clear choice in the comments that we receive. Everybody's comment is very different.
Well, what is the sort of the defining when they make a decision of how they're going to what is sort of the time frame for
timeline.
making that, and what is the thing that ultimately pushes them in one direction or the other?
It's actually seeker. So at some point they have to choose an option. Because I think I've said this to a couple people. I don't know if I said it to you guys, but they can't engineer 4 options. Like when sometimes people come and they really want to get into details of each of the options, they are not there yet. They can't physically pay for 4 different engineering options. You have to, do a sort of a wide brushstroke of them, then choose one to really hone in on and start engineering. And it actually doesn't mean that the choice that you choose is going to look exactly like it when you go down the engineering path. Things always change, but you have to pick a concept, and you do that in the seeker process when you're evaluating all the alternatives and you're trying to find, the least kind of restrictive.
Could they synthesize another option from all the comments?
I mean, it's possible. We've talked about some kind of a hybrid. The Complete Streets Committee actually wanted to see a hybrid between 3 and 4, but
Yeah, it seems to me like a concept where all the businesses in that area to test it doesn't seem to me to be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, that comment has also come from the public and from other people as well, like.
Maybe it's a little more mixed
Isn't
than I
there a
could
way to
see it,
get
that some
on
like it
board?
and some didn't, but they all seem to hate
Of
it.
the businesses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who likes the parallel parking option.
There's some people out there, but I would say more people
not
don't
talking
like
to
it. Well, I like the parallel parking option.
Cars do it
You can't say
themselves.
nobody.
Okay, well, I didn't know you did. But since there's such a lost art in the first place,
It's automated now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know many people who can parallel park anymore.
They don't.
Parallel
The
parking.
car does
My
it.
kid just had to do it to pass her
Yeah.
driver's test.
I can do it.
I can do it. Oh, I can do it. But it seemed like
I don't like it. I can do it.
the business concerns were, the interruption to business.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
the main.
And that's very important. And that comes across loud and clear. I don't think anybody disagrees with trying to minimize the impact of the business.
That's.
Yeah, there was some.
Everybody really wants to support
There
those.
was something in the paper not too long ago. I think it was over in Rotterdam. There was some development, and there was one business that said that they ended up having to close because the development went on for
Yeah.
and the way it was handled, that it basically put them out of business, and they ended, I don't know if they ended up relocating or what.
Yeah,
But
but I
obviously,
mean-
that's a fair, especially when you hear people talking about, the finances of the co-op, and, whether people say, hey, I'm not going to deal with all that construction and go somewhere else, whether that puts them under. We'd hate to see that happen, obviously. So,
This is predominantly a street improvement project, not a utilities replacement project, correct?
Correct. Although I think a decent amount of the cost comes from when you push that road south, you do have to move the utilities. There's a
Utilities.
lot of underground work that comes with pushing it.
Yeah, that's where the big time crunch is, or the biggest investment. And the further down you go, the longer it's going to take.
yeah.
But, shifting the road is traffic calming. I think that the wider sidewalks doesn't shift the road as far, which would, I don't know if one of the options that you can do, you can still have traffic calming measures that don't shift the road as much, and then you can spend more of the money on, amenities rather than the utilities. But a big chunk of that money, I think, is moving those utilities because you have to when you shift the road that far.
Could they just add another crosswalk? I mean, would that
Well,
make that much of a difference? I mean, it's just, I think if of the visual of, and I'm not far from a traffic engineer, but the visual of having multiple crosswalks, would that
Yeah,
slow people down more?
Crosswalks are definitely traffic calming, but I think I've said this before. The funding is a complicated piece of the puzzle. If you guys are ever bored, you can come with me to Capital District Transportation Committee meeting. But highway safety improvement funding is very difficult to actually apply for. You have to have a high crash rate. It has to have metrics. Like you need like a mathematician to apply to the federal government to get this funding. And there are certain prescriptive things that you have to do that have been proven to reduce accidents. So traffic calming is very important, but they have to look at what can be done to reduce the accidents in that corridor because they're very high. It's not just the fatality. There's a really high incident of
Fender benders.
Yes, fender benders. It's actually almost entirely fender benders, but it's very high for that
But it
corridor.
always seemed to me that there would be some way in which to design it so that you have multiple crosswalks and maybe even a couple little, not the whole way down, but like some type of little barriers that you could actually maybe even put some nice plantings in it and like just enough to the point where the visual of the multiple crosswalks would just kind of act as a bit of a calming measure because it's not just one and you can on speeding. You can actually just have a couple and you're not going to interfere at all with sort of the traditional crossing patterns. Again, I'm sure somebody who does this for a living could probably come up with a million downsides why it doesn't work. But just to me, it seems like a way that's a lot less invasive that you could actually take some positive steps to calm traffic down there.
Definitely. And I think you do see some of that in the comments that, are there ways to achieve the goals of the grant without maybe digging the whole road up? Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's something we keep talking about as you get additional information or feedback, so we
Yeah,
keep
so I'm wrapping up those comments now.
All right, okay.
I think and I always encourage, I think it's good for people to come. I think it's good for the
No,
planning board to
great.
hear it, right? So, because last time we, not everybody agreed, but we, tried to have input on the River Rosendale project as well because it impacts our residents, so.
Yep. Okay, anything else? Any other questions for Laura? All right, then we'll just move on to commission business. Mr. Ross, do you have anything tonight for us?
I may not be able to be at if it's next meeting is October 7th, I may not be able to be there.
Okay, I am
Yeah.
not actually going to be at the October 7th meeting either. Alexis is going to sit here and Paul Briggs is going to sit where Alexis is sitting. You're going to be bookended by lawyers.
Oh, boy.
Are you looking for kind of, I have to see how the word effect is used, but are you looking for some of just
Yeah,
guidelines so that
yeah.
we're not flip-flopping?
Yeah, just some, I think, as you heard the discussion tonight, I think we actually we gained ground
good
tonight in that
sense.
discussion, but I think some guidance there. Like I said, it used to be consistent is what we used to always say, and I think that was easier versus effect, but
I mean, yeah, everything has a causal effect, so.
Yeah.
You're looking at negative or positive.
yeah.
Oh, I see,
Yeah, maybe, I could do a better job too of scrubbing the comprehensive plan every time we
Is
have
it
to make a
consistent or
recommendation.
not inconsistent with the comprehensive
Yeah.
plan too?
When you look at the comprehensive plan, are you looking to?
You don't want to impact it, right? I mean, that's the bottom line, is you don't want to impact.
Things in the comprehensive plan, we're never, not, that are in the process of implementation. A
Right.
lot of them saying, it's gonna require amendments for zoning code.
Yeah.
Which I don't think.
Well, some of them.
Some of them?
Yeah. But I mean, Dave was, obviously on the plan committee, right? So, it's always a tough one. Like, as you said, if you default that if it's not in keeping with any of the ordinances, well, then it's not, I don't think that's the right answer. I think the answer is, does it impact what the goals of the town are as set forth in the comprehensive plan?
So
Yeah.
like constructed chief, they were gonna say that they weren't gonna come, I mean, I don't think they would do it because of the rescinding fine being denied, but if they were to say we're not coming then, I mean, I feel like that would be inconsistent with the comprehensive plan saying that this is our designated high density shopping area.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's one more broad way of looking at it, but I
yeah,
don't think the business.
it's a tough one.
Well, I think it's almost, that's what I said. It's debate between whether the zoning is sort of the pulled in aspect of the comprehensive plan. And I guess I've always been the attitude that it's not. I mean, the argument in favor, it makes sense too. I've just said if it's not within the confines of the comprehensive plan, then it has no effect in the comprehensive plan. But doesn't mean anyone else has
That's
to
a
agree
good
with
view.
that, but that's always been my
It's a good
sense.
view.
Yeah.
I like that. Mr. Diapino, do you have anything?
Yeah, the project we just looked at, 2721 Balltown Road, that would be a great candidate for the Architectural Review Board to look at before we see it. And if you have that committee, they would be able to vet out some of these things. And then we might see something a little bit more refined. A lot of what they may do is look at aesthetics, but again, they'll also get well-versed on the zoning and, with Laura's guidance, what's appropriate zoning, what's appropriate development in the zoning.
Yep.
I thought that would just be a really good project that if they.
Yeah, it might, obviously not benefit us, but also the applicants could save them money by
Right.
having those meetings and getting a feel for, what the town would like to see there too. Yeah.
I just dug that up on my desk because I've been trying to clean my desk before my new assistant planner comes, so maybe I can look at that with Alexis.
Yeah. Anything else, Dave?
That's
Ms. Bartlett?
I also just wanted to share kind of a thought and I guess a question for anyone who's inclined to kind of offline, even give me some idea of how to compare this 2721 Balltown Road proposal to what we looked at potentially happening next to CVS in the town center maybe a year ago now. To me, just first blush, the CVS proposal was fit much better with the town and kind of the proposed site. And that was even less dense than this. So I frankly, if I'm being honest, I just don't see this 3-story, maximizing the number of units on Balltown Road, where we've heard concerns abound with traffic. And then also a lot of people have come to this board just stating that they think that we have an excess of apartments, excess of supply. So that, I guess I'm trying to understand how we in good conscience can really encourage this developer to pursue more engineering and design work when I gotta think it's a really heavy lift to get the use changed.
Yeah, I think, I would hope he got that feedback, but I think that's very well put, because if he starts looking at two-story buildings and the space you have, he might come to the realization, financially, that it just isn't there for him, If he can go to two-story and make it in keeping with the residential character, of the Schwaber subdivision next door, hey, maybe we got something there that could, it's a win-win for the town, but it's a tough one. As it stands tonight, it sounds, from what I heard, and I think hopefully that's what the applicant or potential applicant took away, is that it's too much, right? And it's too much and it doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood.
Well, if it's the case, I'll never believe anybody who said that, oh, I could barely got it within like 24, anything less than that. It comes back with like a 12 unit one. I'm like, well, I guess it wasn't,
Yeah,
it really
exactly.
wasn't that,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we have to,
But it's not our place
To design it.
to say this is not a negotiation. If it's like 24, no 12, no 18,
it's moot
So
because we
it's
still got to
they-
make a recommendation and it's still got to get through the
That was
ZBA
the-
also,
That didn't fit the neighborhood. It has anything you would want to see there would have to fit.
One of our chief roles is to literally look at again, obviously we have to look at the environmental and traffic aspects, but there's an aesthetic aspect that is the thing that I think people will come to us and say, how did you let that go there? That looks nothing like the rest of the area. That I think it is a kind of incumbent on us to kind of have that question. Maybe they can make it look like it, but I don't know how to tell them that. I mean, that's up to them to come up forward with something that would fit within it, that area.
Anything else, Ms. Smith?
No, that was.
No, thank you. Ms. Gold?
I'll mention, there was a good article in the Gazette on Sunday about seniors are downsizing, they're right-sizing. In the past, they've tended to go much smaller units and not been happy, so they're now looking for what's comfortable and what really meets their needs. And I've seen several other articles. If they're looking at something like a townhouse or condominium, they're tending to look for elevators.
Yeah.
And even if they're looking for an apartment, if it's not going to be ground floor, they want an elevator. So it's a little bit of an adjustment because so many apartments don't have them. It was really interesting because the way we've been looking at things for so many years just isn't working out for them. And I had asked where the Holocaust Memorial is. Any update on that?
Sorry, Leslie.
Because I know they were anxious to start.
I know.
Anything else, Ms. Gold?
No, that does it.
Mr. Rivers?
If the current applicant continues to make appearances on 2721, I just want to let the board know that I'll be recusing myself from any activities on that matter. I have a business relationship with the applicant.
Thank you.
I also can't make the October 7th. I'm going to be away for that particular date.
Yeah. Oh, well, we have 6. Yeah, no, that's
I
fine.
think you just need 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's not a risk of anybody being conflicted out and sitting out.
No, we wouldn't take any action on 2721. Actually, the only thing I have on the agenda for October 7th, which I have to finish the agenda by Monday because I'm not going to be here, is finalizing the Amador subdivision.
Amador?
Yeah, because they wanted to be on this meeting, but they didn't quite have everything ready. So I actually anticipate that being the only item on the agenda would be final subdivision approval for Amador. And if it's possible and they are okay with it moving to October, the second meeting in October, I might be able to cancel that meeting and just.
Yeah, they had to update the drawings. There were some errors and things to be corrected.
Yeah, there was
They had
some
to be-
final subdivision stuff they needed to fix. Yeah.
Okay.
And a tree planting plan.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
Mr. Flom, anything else?
No, that's it.
Ms. Kim, you have anything for us tonight?
Hillside was finally cleaned up, 1276. The owner was unfortunately arrested this morning, and J-Dog cleaned up the property as of 6:30 p.m. They were still cleaning it up, but looks a lot better, and hopefully it isn't a reoccurrence.
Which property was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
1276 Hillside. It's the one.
1276 Hillside.
Is it the brick single family?
So
Yeah, he has brick.
It's just the one that had so much garbage in front of it for a year.
Is it criminal charges?
Yeah, don't junk up your yard.
It's a
Junk-
it's a criminal
junk-
matter?
But I mean, it's an offense, it's a violation, so it's criminal jurisdiction. I mean, he was released. It was not like he's in the jail cell right now. But yeah, J-Dog,
1261 Hillside?
1276.
1276.
All right, thank you, and I have nothing further for tonight, so thank you everybody for the time tonight. It was a good meeting. Motion to adjourn. Mr. DiRapino, motion adjourned, seconded by Mr. Oster, because I'm looking in that direction. There might have been others, but thank you, everybody. I assume we're okay for adjournment.
Yeah, no, I
Thanks.
felt like it was like, I was having like a monologue in front of the judge being like, is this,